Lorenzo Battaglieri's office.
Correct match.
This piece of cloth was ripped out of this gray vest. Lorenzo Battaglieri's vest. This does not work.
Please do come in.
It won't take too long.
I have some work to wrap up before tomorrow morning, but take a seat. Go on. Ask me all the questions you want. Feel free.
May I photograph your shoes?
My shoes? Well, go ahead. I doubt that'll be very useful to your investigation, Inspector.
Thanks. I need your assistance to clarify certain points. Excuse me. I'll come back to see you.
Correct match.
What can I do for you, Inspector?
I'm surprised that Colio, even if he was angry at Jones, was not more grateful for his generosity.
I don't know anything about this. I can't tell you anything.
What do these gifts from Jones hide? Why did he want to assure the future of Colio and his daughter?
I don't know anything about this. I'm sorry.
Well, this is very impressive. But tell me, what sort of relations did Lorenzo maintain with Jones?
Walter had a lot of respect for Mr. Battaglieri when they first met. Lorenzo Battaglieri has talent, and Walter knew how to recognize and reward talented people.
What did Lorenzo do after having received orders to continue the construction from Jones?
Well, Mr. Battaglieri has an artistic temperament and is slightly whimsical. But he is also a servile and obedient man. He never dared to question an order from Walter Jones.
I wonder what Lorenzo did after receiving new orders from Walter Jones asking him to stop the construction.
Lorenzo never questioned an order from Walter Jones. I can confirm that, Inspector.
Sorry, but I understand nothing about architecture. I would like to have some things in this sketchbook explained.
I believe you should ask that question to the interested party, Inspector.
In this document, a trial against Diva Company is evoked. What is it all about exactly?
Well, it's a bit too complex to explain. Take this, read it. You'll waste less time this way.
This menu seems utterly appetizing. Tell me, what are we eating today?
I don't know anything. To my deep regret, the chief French cook left us. What a rare pearl. An artist.
This tower on this wild island, far from everything. Isn't it madness?
That's true, but this brochure was useless. I told Walter that it was very expensive, considering the use it was put to.
What luxury. For some, the world is all roses. But where did the staff go? I don't see them.
There's no place for this document anymore, as I was obliged to fire the staff of the tower. It's become a little surrealist, don't you think?
What happened to the maintenance staff of the tower after that?
Back to their homes, probably. All these people were deprived of their jobs by the health and safety inspectors from Salé, and they were bribed by Madiva.
A hotel of this size, deprived of all its staff. It's a darn problem, I'd say.
I cannot tell you, Inspector, but sometimes one has no choice. I paid the fine, and the outstanding balance of all the employees, and I took legal action against Madiva. One day they'll pay for all their malpractice and corruption.
I don't understand why Walter Jones continued to construct the tower after this verdict.
Walter Jones wasn't born yesterday. He wasn't going to let himself be intimidated by these swindlers.
Walter Jones was cheated well and good. But did he appeal this judgment?
It was me who handled this case. I can prove that the judge held a share in the Madiva agency, and that the verdict he gave is medieval. That's why we filed an appeal at the International High Court of Justice, and we assure victory.
Jones was not the type to take a verdict like this lying down. What's the status of the appeal?
Judge Erickson, who presides over the Fifth Chamber of the Court of Justice, is an old friend and an eminent jurist. He will certainly return a verdict in our favor.
Walter Jones gave this to Baina, didn't he? What were the bonds that connected them?
I knew that he wanted to give the diamond to Baina Jumhu. She hated him deeply since the accident. She came out of it shaken and mute. But like everyone else, she was attracted by the charismatic personality of Walter Jones.
Can you tell me more about the circumstances of this accident, please?
It was a little less than 3 years ago. Walter Jones was with Baina walking around in the rocks. They must have fallen several meters. I don't know the details of that deplorable accident.
So, what was Lorenzo Battaglieri doing in the rocks near the Tortoise Belvedere last night?
I don't know what Battaglieri was doing there, but I can verify that I first saw him take the restaurant elevator with Walter when he left just after dinner. When I was working in my office, I saw Lorenzo Battaglieri hurriedly leave the Belvedere and come back to the tower after Walter's fall. Finally, as I already told you, I ran into him at the foot of the tower when I was running to help Walter. I think that Lorenzo Battaglieri did not see me. He seemed really distraught. This man certainly knows a lot about this, Inspector. I think I already pointed out before that he is madly in love with Baina. I wouldn't be surprised if he were her accomplice. And the murder seems to me to have been very well organized.
According to you, how could Baina have lost pearls from her necklace?
Walter was a brave man. He defended himself and hung on to Baina's necklace, trying to... Good God, what a horror.
Who is the rightful owner of this piece of chain?
It's gold. It could have been Walter's.
It seems that Baina accompanied Walter Jones to the Tortoise Belvedere, but she would have been careful not to leave her footprints if she had deliberately planned to kill Jones.
She's really untamed, with a limited and primitive mind. She could not have thought of everything. I wouldn't be surprised that Baina didn't know about the existence of fingerprints.
For what reason could Baina and Walter Jones have quarreled?
I believe that Baina wanted to get rid of Walter. She had planned it well.
The wheelchairs seemed to be acting strangely before skidding and falling from the cliff. Could it have been malfunctioning? Could a false maneuver have been the reason for the fall?
I'm afraid I can't help you, Inspector. Walter had the most sophisticated and costly wheelchair in the world. A technological marvel to avoid this kind of trouble.
What were you doing at the Tortoise Belvedere last night?
I already told you, Inspector. I saw Walter fall over the edge, and I ran to help him. I hoped he was not too hurt. Then I phoned your police colleagues about Walter Jones's death.
Did Walter Jones die following the first impact on hitting the rocks, or from what happened to him when he fell further down?
It's strange indeed. The storm was violent that night. The wind must have made the body roll further down. What I can confirm is that Walter was lying close to the rocks. He was dead, and the weather was so bad that it was impossible for me to hoist his body. I could do nothing more for poor Walter.
Do you know how Baina broke one of her fingernails?
I never hung out in boarding schools for girls, Inspector. I suggest you ask her father. That old savage will certainly know a lot on this subject.
I'm told that an accident left Baina mute. What is that about?
It was a little less than 3 years ago. Walter Jones was with Baina walking around in the rocks. They must have fallen several meters. I don't know the details of that deplorable accident.
Lorenzo doesn't have faith in you.
Lorenzo is no doubt frustrated to see himself removed from his responsibilities.
Christina said that you were not a commendable person.
She must have sensed that I don't particularly care for wallet chasers like her.
So, tell me a little about Billy.
Billy's a complex and tortured creature, Inspector. He's a pathological gambler. He drinks too much, for sure, but he's intelligent and spirited.
What do you think of Christina?
Oh, Christina's a woman who is pretty, impressive, Inspector. But don't believe that her model's body means she's an idiot. The truth is far from that.
I would love it if you could tell me a little about Sonia.
Sonia is a young woman with a lot of charm, Inspector. I admire her intelligence and her independent spirit. Even Walter himself couldn't get her to bend. And moreover, she is very beautiful, which doesn't spoil anything.
What do you think of Colio?
Oh, he's an old clown. He wants to pass himself off as a sage and play at being a ritual chief, but nobody's fooled. I'll tell you what I really think. Colio is an opportunist and a nuisance, Inspector.
What do you know about Lorenzo Battaglieri?
Well, this architect has definitely lost my trust. And I ought to say that he no longer enjoyed great standing with Walter Jones. We discovered important defects in the construction of the tower. Lorenzo's incompetent to the point of dishonesty, Inspector.
What do you think of Baina?
Oh, that native girl's a real beauty, Inspector. No doubt about it. Her youthful charm really made poor Walter's head spin.
And how did Baina make his head spin?
Sometimes one seeks youth as one gets on in age. Baina was fresh and pure, and Walter Jones was in the habit of getting everything he wanted from life.
I would like to know more about Martin.
Martin Abruzzi is the kind of publisher they don't make anymore, Inspector. I love his editorial choices, and I'm a personal fan of the works he publishes. And, I might add, at a personal level, he's a delightful and charming man.
What can you tell me about Marco?
Marco Jones is an ambitious man who's already made a name in politics, Inspector. I'm sure he'll have a brilliant future.
What can you tell me about Clara?
I hold Claire in great esteem, Inspector. It's amazing, but she always makes me think of Anna Jones, the deceased wife of Walter. The same kindness, the same finesse.
Did you see anyone at the Tortoise Belvedere last evening, or did anything at all catch your attention?
Yes, I was returning to the tower to settle an urgent case that Walter had given me when I saw Baina from afar. She's a young native who pretends to be an idiot. I also saw Lorenzo, who has an unrequited love for her. This woman is a devil. She's made him lose his head.
Do you know anything about medicine?
No, I don't know anything about medicine.
In that case, you can't help me. Interesting. Who touched this wheelchair? My stomach is growling. It's the moment to go and get a bite to eat. Here we go, an efficient meal. I must take your fingerprints for the investigation. Thanks.
Correct match.
I'd like to chat with you for a moment. This tower on this wild island, far from everything, isn't it madness? What luxury. For some, the world is all roses. But where did the staff go? I don't see them. So, what was Lorenzo Battaglieri doing in the rocks near the Tortoise Belvedere last night? Okay, quiet please. Good girl, be quiet. The fingerprints on the wheelchair are yours, Baina. So, tell me a little about Billy. What do you think of Christina? What do you think of Colio? I would like to know more about Martin. What can you tell me about Marco? What can you tell me about Clara? I see. Just one question. I won't be here for long. What did Lorenzo do after having received orders to continue the construction from Jones?
Lorenzo had to obey, even if he knew the tower was going to sink in the sea. Because under the island it is not solid enough. This is an island for cabins, that is all.
Sorry, but I understand nothing about architecture. I would like to have some things in this sketchbook explained.
You have to ask Lorenzo, Jack Norm.
This tower on this wild island, far from everything, isn't it madness?
Jones's tower destroyed my island, Jack Norm. My land will disappear forever.
What luxury. For some, the world is all roses. But where did the staff go? I don't see them.
Old Jones asked me to find him people to work in the tower, and I asked people from my tribe. Later, he dumped them like crab shells.
For what reason was the hotel staff fired?
Old Jones did not give a damn for the men whom I asked to come and work in the tower. These men will never trust me again. I betrayed them. Do you understand that, Jack Norm?
What happened to the maintenance staff of the tower after that?
They went back to their houses on other islands. Walter Jones drove them away like dogs. It's me who made them come here, Jack Norm. So they are furious at me. This is natural.
A hotel of this size, deprived of all its staff. It's a darn problem, I'd say.
I did not want this business to lead to the firing of my friends. My diva stole from me. My diva cheated me, Jack Norm. My diva did as much harm to me as to old Jones.
Does their attorney defend your interests well?
Old Jones thought that we were too stupid to defend ourselves. He thought he could do whatever he wanted here. But this island is ours and no one else's.
Walter Jones was cheated well and good. But did he appeal this judgment?
My diva company cheated old Jones because it held the money from Jones to buy the island. The island is ours. This is as it should be.
Jones was not the type to take a verdict like this lying down. What's the status of the appeal?
Old Jones never gave up, that's for sure. But now he is dead, Jack Norm.
So, what was Lorenzo Battaglieri doing in the rocks near the Tortoise Belvedere last night?
You are evil, Jack Norm. Lorenzo did not kill old Jones. He fished for lobsters in the area. At the moment, many lobsters come to the traps.
The fingerprints on the wheelchair are those of Baina, the beautiful mute.
Baina, my daughter, is too kind, I think. She frequently took old Jones out in the evening.
I'm told that an accident left Baina mute. What is that about?
Baina had climbed with Jones to the top of Hawita, and they fell. I don't know how it happened. Jones never wanted to answer my questions, and Baina, since that day, no longer speaks.
If Noland is to be believed, the young Baina literally cast a spell on Walter Jones. What do you know about this?
My daughter is pure. If Walter Jones wanted her, it was Walter Jones's problem and not Baina's.
Hubert de Noland says that you are an opportunist and a nuisance.
I don't know. I spent the evening in the cabin with Baina.
So, tell me a little about Billy.
Billy Jones is bizarre, Jack Norm. When Billy makes jokes, Billy laughs a lot. And Colio does not understand why. Colio does not understand Billy's jokes.
What do you think of Christina?
Christina is a very beautiful woman, Jack Norm. Christina is tall, strong, vigorous, and supple as a creeper.
I would like to know more about Martin.
Martin? The husband of Sonia Jones. I do not know Martin.
What can you tell me about Marco?
Old Jones had the blessing of the gods with Marco. Marco is the grandson of old Jones, and the name of the Jones family is honored by Marco, Jack Norm.
What can you tell me about Clara?
I like Clara very much. Clara says hello to Colio. Clara smiles at Colio. Clara is a good woman.
Well, if that's all you have to say.